and welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today we are back with a trip ahead, and I'm extremely honoured and extremely pleased to have Scott from Sweden Star Soccer on here. He's a Wolves fan. I talk to these guys quite regularly on Twitter. There's another one called James who unfortunately couldn't make it today. But I talked to Scott, and I talked to Scott back when Frank Lampard got sacked. Just ahead of the FA Cup semi-final, where we did a bit of a preview. It was an incredible show, and I'm finally pleased to have him here on the channel to talk all things Wolves ahead of next season. So James, Scott, sorry, it's a massive pleasure to have you on here. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to it.
Again, if anybody's interested in checking out these amazing people, all links are in the description below. You will not find any Wolves content of upcoming season. So, obviously, let's start off with last season. Last season was a bit of a difficult season, probably compared to your two previous years, which also seen Nuno Espirito Santo leave. We'll get on to obviously if he was sacked or if it's mutual consent, because I know there's a lot of clarity. Obviously, he's obviously at Wolves now. He's at Spurs now too. I know you were Nuno out. I know your fellow colleague James thought Nuno deserved more time. You wanted Nuno to go maybe because obviously the style was very progressive. He wasn't playing at the younger players. He was sticking with the back three, the back four. He looked like the back four. He just wasn't training them well enough with the back four when he tried it. So how did you sum up last year, and what pushed you towards Nuno needing to be gone?
Yeah, I think it was one of them. Above everything, it was the style of play, really, more than anything. I think some Wolves fans weren't happy with the position that we're in the league. I think for me, that was never the issue. It was more the style of play that we were playing. It was very defensive. I think we had the lowest expected goals or the lowest chances in the Premier League last season, which kind of says it all, really. And yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a divide, to be fair. I'm not going to say it was 50-50. I'd probably say it was towards 40% maybe were on my side. 60 still wanted Nuno to stay, give him a bit more of a chance. But to be fair to Nuno, it was one of them. He'll always be remembered as such a great manager for us. I just feel it was the right time to move on. He was looking very tired, very exhausted, very much out of ideas as well. And I just feel that, it was time for him to move on. And he looks so happy already at Spurs. I'm seeing the early pictures of him at Spurs. He just seemed so delighted and so full of life again.
Do you think it was one of those cases? Because obviously, he played a 3-5. He played a 3-5, a 3-2-3 in the Championship that got you guys up in the end, and then it didn't particularly work at the start in the Premier League. He changed to then to 3-5-2, which worked really tremendously well for you guys. Obviously, got you into Europe. Do you think that once that system was found out by people, and obviously you haven't really done a massive overhaul of the squad under Nuno, do you think that Nuno kind of just ran out of ideas for that squad, and it just was one of those coincidences that every manager has in their career where they've done their best with that squad, other managers have found them out, and now a new manager needs to come in and just have better ideas for that squad?
I think you hit the nail on the head there, that he did try to change things. Obviously, we saw him try the back four. It didn't really come off. There's questions whether we've even still got the squad for that. The centre mid positions as well is one which was causing a lot of debate. It was hard for him. I mean, obviously, we lost Raul early into the season. That was obviously a major blow for us. And I think it did come down to it in the end. But I feel that it spent 4 years with us. It's a long time for a manager these days. And maybe, as you say, I just feel maybe we just got a bit found out, to be honest.
But just before I put it on Nuno at Spurs, because obviously you know Nuno obviously extremely well. Jose Mourinho was sacked because they were not. Obviously, Jose was a bit more of a cocky twat dresser. I mean, our guy, Nuno isn't like that at all. Nuno's quite relaxing, but the style of play between Nuno and Jose is quite similar. The Spurs players are going to be playing near enough the same way that they did under Mourinho. There isn't going to be much of a transition between the two. It looks like he's been lining up in a 4-2-3-1 with Spurs in pre-season, which you'd probably expect, which was what Jose was doing for large parts of his time. So, do you think Mourinho got sacked because of the style of play, or do you think it was more of the dressing room aspect? Because if he got sacked for the style of play, Nuno was going to have to do some really good stuff in his first season to have Spurs fans on the side.
Yeah, exactly. I think Nuno will do all right there first and foremost. But the major thing for me was the fact that from what I heard, they got rid of Jose because of the style of play. They wanted an attacking manager. I mean, we know what happened there. They had like 6, 7 other people they approached, tried to sign before Nuno. And I think Levy's told him, from what I've heard, that basically he said to him, no, you're going to have to play attacking football. You're going to have to maybe change your format, your philosophy. I don't really know how much that's going to work, but Levy did promise the Spurs fans attacking football. He promised a more progressive style of play. And I think you've hit the nail on the head there, really. There is some comparisons between Jose and Nuno in their style of play. It's to be defensively smart. We saw that especially under the first half for Nuno. We wouldn't concede often, but there was also a massive stat that we would rarely score in the first half. I don't think that's going to swim at Spurs. I really don't. So I do think he's going to have to progress, his style of play. He's going to have to make it more expansive and attacking. But at the end of the day, maybe he does have more of the players to do it if they keep Kane, they keep Son. They're big players, aren't they, at the end of the day? So maybe he will have a bit of a squad to make that happen more so.
He's under a bit of pressure straight away because it's okay. We joke about it from the outside looking in that obviously this European Conference that's coming in, but you look at that and Spurs by miles are the best squad, best team, best everything. So Nuno has a lot of pressure to win that competition and straight on. And it's not exactly going to be hard to win it, but if he doesn't win it, obviously the Spurs do not win trophies in the ball. But if he can't win that competition, he'll be under immediate pressure because it's hard not to win that thing given the rest of the team.
I definitely agree. And the thing you've got to consider as well is that this Premier League's getting more and more competitive, isn't it? And if you win this Europa, the Conference League, if you win that, you automatically get an entry into the Europa League as well, which of course, is that going to be Spurs' best chance to get into the Europa League realistically? Maybe it is. I mean, obviously they're going to be the biggest club playing in that Europa Conference League, and it probably would be the easiest route to guarantee Europa League football. But you look at the likes of Harry Kane and Son, they're going to want more. They're going to want Champions League. So it's going to be really interesting to see how Spurs actually take that and how the fans take to it too. Are the fans going to be bothered about winning it? I'm not too sure.
Obviously that adds an element, but obviously if Daniel Levy wants it, then Nuno has a lot of pressure to win it. But it's going back to Wolves. Let's get on to your transfer activity. Now, I have to say, Wolves are one of the clubs I've not paid too much attention to activity team wise. Obviously, Chelsea haven't been doing particularly too much themselves, but. So I'm going to be terrible at pronouncing these names. I'm going to leave you to it if you have a clue how to pronounce these names. But obviously, you've signed a young left back there, Nouri, 20-year-old from the French league for 9.99 million, very specific numbers. I do know left back's probably been a position that you guys have been looking to strengthen in. Obviously, you've had John. I think Johnny is it Johnny? Johnny was probably your main left wing back. I know Wolves.
So yeah, on that one, Johnny suffered 2 ACLs in back-to-back seasons. If you remember, Nouri, we actually had him on loan last year, and there was an option to buy actually for 18 million. Because of financial fair play, I don't think we've took that one up. So what we actually did is we renegotiated with them, and we've brought him for that 9.9 million pound fee with a 50% sell-on clause going to. Obviously Angers when we actually do sell him. The interesting one in that is you might see further on Ruben, I think it is Vinagre, Ruben Vinagre. Yeah, I believe he's actually moved on now. I believe we've actually sold him for the exact same fee with the exact same clause. So it's almost a bit of a swap deal, actually. I'm not fully sure if that's gone through. The last I read, I believe it had already gone through, but it's interesting that Transfer Market haven't noted that yet, but that's definitely what was being reported, that he was moving on. I believe he has, and it was the exact same fee, that 10 million pound fee with a 50% sell-on clause. So to be honest, it's very shrewd business. I prefer Nouri. I think he's going to be one hell of a player, and he's just going to be one to watch. Obviously only 20 years of age.
Just on under your new manager, we'll get into more detail on him later after the transfers. But is he more of a left back or more of a left wing back?
It's hard, isn't it, at that age to kind of define them? But from what I've seen, I believe he looks, to me anyway, he looks to have more quality in his attacking prowess than he does his defensive ones. Bruno, obviously, we are going to move on to Bruno Lage a bit later, but from the early signs, he's going to be a massive fan of the press. Weirdly, he played out Nori left mid at Crewe in our pre-season, but I believe that was purely just because we didn't have the wingers available. Because of all our wingers pretty much still yet to come back due to international duty for that fixture. So it's going to be an interesting one. I think he has been playing left back for us at times when we have done a 4. I think his quality is more focused on attacking. But, at 20 years of age, he's definitely got time to improve that defensive aspect of his game.
So next one, you've had a change in goals. So obviously, Rui Patricio has gone to join Jose Mourinho in Italy at Roma for 10.35 million. You've brought in Jose Sarr from Olympiacos for 7.20. Now, I was really surprised that you can move Rui Patricio on. Now, he got him for a free transfer from Sporting Lisbon. Incredible piece of business. He was always solid for you guys. I was very surprised to hear Rui Patricio was being moved on. Are you able to explain why he's been moved on, or is it a preference of the manager?
I think it's an interesting one, the whole Rui Patricio saga, because if you remember, we originally got him on a free transfer and then had to end up paying a fee. It was at the time where, I forget his old club, it's completely gone out of my head. Sporting Lisbon, that was the one. It was at the time that weird fiasco was going on, actually, where the players were getting actually got attacked in training, I believe it was. There was a whole fan revolt, and it meant that a lot of the players, just by contract clauses, could literally just say, right, I'm not playing for you again. So we signed him on a free, but later at a tribunal did have to pay a fee. The main reason comes down to his age, I believe, and the fact that he only had 12 months left on his contract. So when you look at that, we've managed to pick up a decent fee for him, and I think we've brought in a good replacement in Jose Sarr. Jose Sarr, he's about 4th in the pecking order, actually, in terms of Portuguese keepers. But from what we've been told, that you'd naturally think that's a massive downgrade. But to be honest, there's not a lot in those Portuguese keepers, and if he does well in the in the Premier League, he probably could see himself getting called up into the international picture. So it's one to monitor, definitely one to monitor. Could be an interesting one.
When he was at Porto a few years ago, he was extremely. He said that the potential of the guy is insane, and obviously it's now time, and pretty much in his prime as a goalkeeper, to kind of live up to that expectation. So it'll be interesting to see how he does next year. So next he's got a young 20-year-old centre back from the Colombian league. I'm not going to try and say his name because I'm going to butcher it, for 4.68 million. I do know that you guys are quite old in the centre back department, so obviously bringing a young centre back is probably exactly what you need now. Obviously, there's probably not much known about him. He's going to be, obviously, he's got a lot to prove, but at least it's a clear indication that you're trying to get people in the door to try and maybe learn off the older, more experienced centre backs that you have.
Yeah, definitely, and I suppose this is where Brexit becomes almost a factor in. As you can see, we've signed someone from a different league to the ones we would usually look into. I think our recruitment team have actually mentioned that there are some negatives that maybe we'd struggle to sign the younger European players, but it does open up that South American market. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one, isn't it? There's been a lot of plaudits about him, a very tall, strong, physical centre back. From what it's a tough one. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think anyone's really going to know an awful lot about him. Yeah, you could look at the transfer fee, couldn't you? And you wonder how ready he's going to be. But at the same time, you look at other clubs like Leicester; they've managed to pull up some great business, signing centre backs for 4 or 5 million that are slotted straight into the first team. So it looks like he's training with the first team squad, put it that way. So he's definitely going to be in and amongst the squad.
And then these next two, so you got a guy from Barcelona alone who's a right winger, and then you've got a right back from the Hungarian league for 1.8 million. I think at the right back's probably more signed for the under 20 for the development squad. But what about his Barcelona one? Because you don't bring in people on loan unless it's for the first team. He is highly rated at Barcelona. He did well in their academy team, in their B team, obviously because he's been in a La Liga league. I think it's the third tier of La Liga they play in. He is highly rated. Maybe he's coming in to just give it a competition and maybe to see if he's worth buying. Is there much to these two, or are they just kind of just those types of signings that clubs make randomly?
So Trincão's an interesting one. I think it's an unbelievable signing from us. It's a loan with an option to buy, which is us being very clever once again because of our financial fair play struggles and monitoring that. So we've got him on a loan with an option to buy. I mean, look, he's definitely going to, for me, he's definitely going to be pushing that first team picture. And it's for me, it's a very highly rated signing. I think he's going to bring a lot. Apparently best friends with Pedro Neto as well, which is also going to help us maybe keep him for a couple more years. But, you know, as you say, a lot of plaudits of Barcelona. I think we've maybe took advantage of the problems that they're having there. Of course, other clubs have been linked to him before. I think Leicester had been linked to him previously. I know the guys from Beyond the 90, Neil, he was a bit disappointed at the time when we signed him, but Leicester didn't pull that off because them themselves need wingers.
Oh, that's fair enough. In terms of people going out, a few ones. Obviously, Ruben Tracy, we've already kind of touched upon. You've already touched upon Fergie. William Jose, obviously, went back to Real Sociedad. I think it just didn't work out for him, did they, at all?
No, that's an interesting one, isn't it? It's a bit funny, really, because his first game in pre-season, he's gone and scored, and everyone's going, right, okay, he's suddenly shown up again. Things just didn't work out. I don't think the formation style of play under Nuno suited him. Interestingly, maybe as a 4-4-2 with which Bruno Lage is looking to play probably, maybe he would have done a bit better, but I don't think we're ever going to find out, to be honest.
And then Patrick Cantona, he's away back to Valencia. Again, just another guy who you side. He went back on loan 6 months later to Florentina. He came back after Raul Jimenez suffered his problem, and you brought William Jose in, and he didn't get a sniff again. Like, that was just a mess of a signing.
Yeah, it was, and it's a bit unlike us. We've been very shrewd with our signings. There's not really been any that we've really lost money on, but this one just didn't work out. Had issues with Nuno straight away from what we're led to believe. And yeah, it's an interesting one. He's currently with us in pre-season, but even as today, the day that we've recorded it, he posted something, his agent actually posted something saying, looking for plans towards the future, with a picture of him sat with Patrick Cutrone. So it's very, I guess, adamant, very obvious rather, that he's going to go. And I think it's going to be apparently somewhere in Italy. He's just going to go back to Italy. I'll be surprised if we even get 10 million for him, to be honest. So it is going to be a bit of a loss for us.
Moving on to pre-season. So first of all, before we dive into these games, what do you make? What's your opinion about the new appointed manager that you've got? You've already kind of discussed about he looks like he wants to play a high press. It looks like it's a transition from Nuno. It's going to be a different style of play. It's going to be the opposite to what Nuno wants. It looks like 4-4-2. Do you think he's a decent, highly rated manager? Is it a gamble? What do you think?
It's definitely a gamble. It is definitely a gamble. Obviously, he did very well in the Portuguese league. He was actually the number 2 at Swansea. When things came to an end in the Portuguese league, he actually decided to take some time out of management to kind of learn the game more, to go and do some research on it, really press on it, I guess, his identity. So it's an interesting one. You know, it is a gamble. Obviously, no Premier League experience. But I think his style of play will really warm the fans early on, especially if he hits the ground running. Of course, I've mentioned a 4-4-2. I don't think that's going to be the old-fashioned Harry Redknapp type 4-4-2. It's going to be a bit of a modern-day 4-4-2. But, yeah, I mean, we don't really know what to expect. I mean, it's looked promising from what we've seen in the pre-season against Crewe, although obviously, as you can see, we lost that game. The style of play and identity and everything that's coming out of the camp is very positive at the moment from players.
That's good to hear. Also, as you said, you lost to Crewe, but I'm getting from what you said, it looks like you're a Canby player that played in that game, so I didn't.
Yeah.
In case you don't look too much into it. No, you've actually got a quite. No, I said I've done a fair few of these, and you actually have quite a busy pre-season compared to most teams. Like Manchester City only have 2 friendlies. Chelsea, I think, have 3 or 4, but only 3 of them are being shown on TV. Man United have a fair few. I know Liverpool only have 2 or 3. So you've gone for a very busy pre-season. You're obviously going to Spain, I can assume now, for a training camp, and then you've got a game against Real Betis, and then 2 days later against Las Palmas. You're in the second tier of Spanish football, and you're away to Stoke City, which is always dodgy. It's always dodgy going away to Stoke. And away to Coventry, and then finishing at home to Celtic Vigo. So you've got some really good opposition, some good tests. Obviously, we also have a Spain training camp. I can only assume which I'm assuming you're probably actually you're being now. That's a really good preseason. I think plenty of players are going to get minutes. Plenty of players are going to get a chance to get used to this new formation. Maybe that's to do with the transition of the style to try and get the players ready for it. I'm sure you'll have plenty of preseason action to enjoy anyway.
Yeah, exactly that. You've hit the nail on the head there. And in fact, you are right. We're currently out in Spain. I think we went out yesterday. They're doing obviously a little bit of a pre-season training camp. And then you've had a couple of Spanish players join back up. You've got Semedo that's joined back up. Matinho. Ruben Neves is an interesting one. Apparently, he was supposed to report back to camp. There's mixed signals if he's actually there or not, and a bit of a worry there with him, of course, being linked to United. He's also been linked to Arsenal, but that's just one to monitor, I guess, at the time being. But yeah, I think this is why we've gone for so many friendlies. It's about the identity, isn't it? I imagine Bruno wants to have a look at the players and decide who he likes, who he doesn't, and also get that. It's a very contrasting style of play. The players themselves, Morgan Gibbs White, has already alluded to that. It's a very different style of play. So I think he just probably wants to get that ingrained into us before we go to our first game against Leicester.
That's a big game against Leicester too at the start. Even the opposition is good. Obviously, Real Betis under Manuel Pellegrini, very, very good team. Last Palms, that's probably. I guess it was that game being 2 days later. I can see probably more of the kids playing in that game. With it being 2 days later, especially in the soaring heat of Spain. Stoke City are actually having a really good pre-season. As you may remember, I'm from Northern Ireland, and they came over and played. Do you know Linfield?
Yes, yeah, I've heard of them.
They came over and played Linfield and tanked them 7-1.
Oh, wow.
In a friendly. Stephen Fletcher scored an overhead kick.
Of course, a former player for us. That'll be interesting.
So Stoke having a really good pre-season. Obviously, as it's already alluded to, go away to Stoke, so always dodgy, and then Coventry are in decent form, and then Celtic Vigo also in our La Liga team. So you're getting some really good tests out of that too. So again, it's only friendlies. You don't look too much into them, but if you do win them, or you can test most, or you compete in most of these games, you'll be going into the season with a fair bit of confidence.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's very telling, isn't it? I mean, you look at our fixtures there. We play Stoke on the 31st, and then we play Coventry the next day. So I imagine they'll obviously be 2 very different teams. Maybe one of them will even be just purely the under-23s, or maybe it'll be a mixture of both. He probably wants to have a look what we have in the academy. And I hope that's the case. I'd like to think we can bring in some of our academy players into the mix, because we've put a lot of money into that.
So moving on to next season, you're feeling about next season. So obviously, we have a brief look at your league games, and that is obviously those first 3 games you look at. See, under Nuno, you'd look at those games and you could get results out of them. But obviously, new style of play, new manager, away to Leicester, home to Nuno. His reunion doesn't take very long to come along, and then home to Manchester United, who you have had favourable results against in your time in the Premier League. What would your how many points would you accept out of those first 9 available?
It's a hard one, isn't it? That how many points would they accept? I mean, if we, in all honesty, if we could get 2 or 3, you probably wouldn't say that's even that bad, to be honest. I mean, you'd like to think we at least get something. It's a hard one. It's a very hard start for him, and I don't really want to put too much pressure on him too early. To be honest, I hope he wins the Tottenham one. Our first home game, we're going to have full capacity for the first time in, nearly 2 seasons. And, of course, it's going to be against the man that has recently been, let go in Nuno. So I think if we can win that one, that's just going to give a really big boost to the Bruno Lage going forward, and maybe get the fans instantly behind him.
I hope you beat Manchester United, because you'll just have United commit all the out again. And I love listening to all the out people. I think it's absolutely hilarious. But see, after that tough run, but then you're home to Watford, you're away to Watford, or you're home to Brentford, you're away to Southampton, who we don't know if they'll struggle like they did last season or if they'll be in and then you're home to Newcastle, who lost to York City. A pre-season game with their first team complete. It was a full first team, no academy players playing, and they lost to York City. So, after those first 3 difficult games, you have 4 games that are most definitely winnable. So it's a big contrast, isn't it?
It definitely is, and as you say, all of those you hope are going to be winnable. So I think fans are just going to have to be patient. It's hard when, especially, you've got a new manager, because you just want to hit the ground running. But I think we've got to be realistic and. I mean, even if we can just get the 1 point, it wouldn't look great. But let's face it wouldn't be terrible. But of course, maybe some fans would go into a bit of an instant meltdown. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I look at our fixtures, and the I guess the thing for me, which is most gutting, is going to be the fact that we don't get a Saturday 3 o'clock game until Newcastle. I mean, already we're getting fixtures thrown out on the Sunday. Our first one being a Sunday at 2 o'clock. The week later, Sunday 4:30.
Well, that's just on a Saturday at 3 o'clock, so you're okay there.
Yeah, that'll be okay. Unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to make that one. I'm actually on holiday, and to be honest, I doubt I'd get tickets to the away game. I have a home season ticket, but it's quite hard to get tickets to the away game unless you can sort of make every single one, which unfortunately I can't. But yeah, it's one of them, isn't it, these days? I mean, you as a Chelsea fan know how it is. A Saturday 3 o'clocker is just unheard of.
That's very true. No, the thing is, I support Glenavon. So if Chelsea are playing at 3 o'clock, and Glenavon, the local team here, I support Northern Ireland, play at 3 o'clock, I go to the actual football game rather than stay at home watching on the TV, which I'm sure people would understand. But I think 3 o'clock on a Saturday kickoffs are just amazing. Like see whoever came up with what was it, 7:45 kickoffs on a Monday night there during COVID. It was horrible.
It wasn't good.
7:45 kickoffs on a Saturday too, and all that was. It was terrible. Just as you reiterated about fans going back full capacity, Chelsea did sell out the whole Stamford Bridge for the Crystal Palace opener on the 14th of August. Obviously, you will be hopefully be hoping to attend this game against Spurs, and if you're a season ticket holder, how will it feel for you personally to be back at Molineux, full stadium? Everyone's there. Everyone's cheering on behind their team. Nuno's coming back, which I'm assuming he'll get a decent reception from the fans. Does it excite you just to finally be able to go back to a 100% capacity stadium and watch your team?
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm really excited. It's definitely been something that's been missing in my life personally. From I mean, it's been nice to watch every single game on TV, and it's a shame that there's. I've alluded to it before. It's a shame that we have to pay Sky, BT, etc., to watch our teams now. It's a shame there's not just a Premier League app or something which we can download and pay a certain amount of money towards. But I mean, actually going to the game, it's going to be fantastic. It's a shame really, but it's going to be, our first game is going to be that, I suppose, the reunion with Nuno. And it's going to be weird seeing him in that leading that Spurs team. It's just a shame, but that's how it's fell. It's going to add something extra. It's just a shame it weren't a bit of a random team where there wasn't too much behind it. But I'm definitely looking forward to it. And it's not just about the atmosphere and everything. There's people that obviously having a season ticket with. You see at the games you're friends with really, but we've just not seen each other for nearly 18 months, 2 years. now, so it's just going to be so good to get back and see everyone, and of course, see a game live, which with hopefully not too many restrictions either.
Maybe a last minute goal there against Spurs, and he's all going crazy, and maybe that'll be a good way to in terms of your expectations for next season, now with a new manager, you've maybe got the same core. You haven't strengthened in too many areas. You still got a good core. Obviously, there's a whole thing about Ruben Neves going ahead at the moment. Where do you want to? You had 2 good years in the league beforehand where you finished 7th. Obviously, you didn't particularly have a great year last year. Are you going into this year now? Is it your 4th year in the Premier League, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah.
Do you think that it's time to go for the cups? Because obviously you had no success with the cups. Would you be okay with a mid-table finish and go for one of the cups now, or do you want to see another? Do you want to see you push for the European Conference League / Europa League next season?
It's a hard one, isn't it? I think at the start of the season you've really got to prioritise the league first, haven't you? See where it goes. But in terms of the overall season, if we can get a mid-table run with a bit of a cup run, I'd be quite happy with that, to be honest. Of course, we it's going to be a tough one. We've got a new manager, a new style of play. That's going to take some adjusting. I think we've got to be a bit more realistic in terms of where we want to finish. It's a weird one because as much as I was against Nuno towards the end, I'd probably take a similar place finish as long as we've got that kind of a lot better, more exciting style of play and football. Ideally, I hope we can finish in the top 10, but there's just so much competition, isn't there, these days? You've got your likes of Leicester, West Ham, your Evertons. There's going to be so many more from the previous big 6 that are trying to push towards it. Of course, I've got to throw in Midlands rivals Aston Villa into that mix as well. There's just going to be so much competition, and it's hard. It's hard now to know where realistically you're going to end up.
That's really good. Is that something that you hope could happen in the next few years? Wolves do have a really good FA Cup run. You push quarterfinals, maybe take a trip to Wembley in the semi-final. Is that for you like a dream for you to hope that Wolves at some point would be stable enough in the Premier League that you could really push forward and do like a Leicester in the FA Cup?
Yeah, I think you've got a dream of bringing that trophy home, haven't you? At the end of the day, I mean, of course, we made it to the FA Cup in our semi-final under Nuno, where we famously lost 3-2 to Watford after being 2-0 up. I think that still haunts all Wolves fans a bit. So it'd be nice to it'd be nice to, I suppose, rectify that, if that's the right word, rectify it. Yeah, but I think we've got to be hopeful for a cut run. I think the main thing is, though, we've just got to keep pushing on. What you don't want to end up is one of those mid-table teams where you go into the season just thinking, well, we're going to finish mid-table this year. You've really got to hope that we can push on and, look towards that European picture.
But you have no scare or fret about relegation or anything, no? Don't want to jinx it,
go down. We shouldn't, but there's not. It's a hard one, isn't it, in this Premier League? I mean, you look back to a few years ago. I think even at one point, Everton found themselves not down there in threat of relegation, but the first half of the season they Arsenal did. I mean, even Arsenal found themselves, and they're a lot more of a stable Premier League club, both for them realistically. So you've. I suppose it's one of them. Once you get dragged in there, it can get very tough. You've just got to hope you accumulate enough points in the first 10 games of the season to give yourselves a bit of confidence and to press on. I mean, we shouldn't go down, I don't think, with the squad we've got, but I don't think you can ever be too surprised if you do find yourself in a relegation scrap, especially when the Premier League's just getting more and more competitive every year.
It is indeed. And on to that, actually, I'm a Chelsea fan, so I do want to briefly ask you about Chelsea, because I've been doing this with everyone so far, the different opinions and all. It's so fascinating to hear from, because obviously it's always, as Chelsea fans, obviously I can get mixed up in the emotions of the club because I have that energy, but looking at it from people from the outside, it always gives you a different look. So how do you think Chelsea are going to factor next? He's obviously Olivier Giroud going to AC Milan. Tammy Abraham wasn't particularly favoured by Thomas Tuchel in any shape, way, or form, and he's the only striker of the club. There's very big talk about Arsenal wanting him now, and then there's conflicting reports if we would sell him or if we would wait for a striker to come in. I've said without Chelsea getting a striker in the door, bearing the fact that Werner, Havertz, Ziyech, Mount all struggled to get consistently on the score sheet. Jorginho finished our top goal scorer with 7 goals, which were all from the penalty spot of the Premier League, which is terrible.
Yeah.
Do you think, I've said that without Chelsea getting number 9 in, Chelsea are going to struggle to get top 4 because the goals won't be there? Would you say that Chelsea do desperately need to get a striker in if they want to contend for the title?
It's an interesting one because I know Timo Werner became a bit of a meme last year. You don't know, do you, though, with that second? Some players really take a year to settle into the Premier League. I mean, let's not forget one of the greatest Premier League strikers in all time, Thierry Henry, famously took probably about 12 to 15 months to settle in. I mean, I don't quite get that same vibe with Timo Werner, but he's got to end up in Henry. But I think... Realistically, I think you're a Haaland or a Lewandowski away from winning the title. I'm not fully convinced that you'll be able to do it without one of those big 2 signings, but I still think you'll comfortably end up in the top 4, and I think you'll perhaps challenge for the title. It's just really down to me if one of those strikers, I'm probably looking at Timo Werner, can really step up in his second season and deliver on the goals.
Well, that's what my point's been this whole time. You know, if you didn't get a number 9 in, you're gonna have to ask Thomas Tuchel to get Tammy Abraham drilled and get him going so he can trust him. And you're asking Werner to score 15 plus goals. You're expecting Havertz to score 15 plus goals. You need Mason Mount to contribure a bit more. You need Ziyech to find his interact for. But I just feel like it's, instead of getting a striker in who's a proven goal scorer like Lukaku, like Harden's not going to happen. I've said this. I don't think Harden is too much in that deal for it to happen. And no, it's a Abramovich, and Abramovich pulls off wonder things, but it's too much of it. Everyone knows last year from Sancho with Dortmund, it's not going to happen. Lukaku's too far-fetched. There was interest we may go for Lewandowski. I think it's too little, too late for Lewandowski. So I just think leave all the pressure on those players who clearly struggled for a bit of confidence last year. And the question is, could Timo Werner and Havertz do it away? They couldn't do it in empty stadiums last year. Could they do it with the away fans on their back? And that's the issue I have. But I guess these are the things that you wait for in the season, and it's probably annoying thing about pre-season because you don't know any answers until about December. So it's quite painful. My final question before we wrap things up, and this is the question again I've been asking everyone. It threw so many people off. People get really surprised when I ask them this. Who do you think will be the first manager sacked next season?
That is an interesting question, isn't it? I'm thinking through this a little bit. I think it's going to be one of the new managers appointed. I really do. And don't worry, I will make a final prediction, but I feel it's going to be one of the new ones that just won't hit the ground running, whether that be our own, whether that be Nuno, whether that be Benitez, of course, or Vieira. Do you know what? I'm going to make the prediction. I think it'll be the Vieira. I think Vieira at Crystal Palace. Palace have had a really good transfer window, and I even tweeted that earlier today. But I feel they've had a fantastic transfer window on what was looking a very bleak situation. But I've seen nothing from Patrick Vieira so far that convinces me that he's at that Premier League level. He definitely wasn't their first choice. He was probably about their 5th or 6th choice. Let's be honest. And I don't know. I know, of course, you had Ali the Eagle on, didn't you? Who's a bit more excited, he's a bit more excited about Vieira and what he can bring. But for me, I'm not too sure on his credibility as a Premier League manager. I've seen nothing in his resume to suggest that he's qualified for that post and the rework that's needed doing at Palace.
At least he's not Frank de Boer. At least he's not Frank de Boer. He can get worse than Frank de Boer. I've got Dean Smith of Aston Villa, which may bring you a bit of a smile to your face. I think they'll lose Jack Grealish to Man City. I think City will get Jack Grealish, and I think the win rate without Jack Grealish when he was injured last season for Aston Villa was atrociously bad. It was incredibly bad. Defensively, they're suspect. Emi Martinez saved them a lot of last season, and I feel like if they'll be bottom half next year by Christmas, they'll be struggling for form. Dean Smith has been close to getting sacked a few times, and I feel like he'll be sacked for a time lucky, because I just feel like I feel like that Aston Villa team's capable of a top half finish. I just feel like under Dean Smith, they've never. I don't think they've ever, except for the first half of last season, they've never looked as convincing as they should be for that squad. And I feel like it just comes down to Dean Smith, and that's my opinion. Do you know Chris Ellis of Villa Together?
What's that? Sorry.
Do you know Chris Ellis of Villa Together?
No.
No. There's someone who knows him. I don't know who it is. I can't put him ahead, but he's a big Aston Villa fan, and he thinks Dean Smith's running on a thin leg. But
really, I'm surprised at that. I thought his performance last year would have probably gave him a bit to work with. And interestingly, with Villa, they are looking at. I mean, they're putting their hands in the pockets, aren't they? I don't know whether that's because they know that Grealish is eventually going to go for 100 million and they're spending that money in advance, but. I suppose the problem isn't that we're spending money. Of course, Frank Lampard experienced that last season. When you do spend the big money, then you are going to be expected to perform. So I think it's not the worst prediction in the world, but I do wonder whether the fact he's a Villa fan might just give him a bit more time. I don't know how you feel about that.
Well, it's possible, but Frank Lampard's a Chelsea legend, and he didn't get that extra bit of time. So, and the thing is, the Villa owners are going to be a bit ruthless. We've seen what happened with Steve Bruce. Steve Bruce got quite sacked quite on the spot. But no, this is our question, because it was a bit of a big debate today, and I just very quickly want to ask you this: Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, do you think next year, with all the players they're signing, no trophies in his tenure? Do you think so? This is it. This is Solskjaer's final big season. If he doesn't win anything, United will have to surely get rid of him. After all the money that's been put into him, the squad that he has, this is all or nothing for. Which is probably one of the more controversial managers, because you never know if he's good or bad. But this is the final year for him to do something.
It's an interesting one, isn't it, with Ole? I think he's going to have pressure on him to deliver on a trophy this year. I think 100%. I mean, look, he's got them. He seems like a manager that's going to get them top four. But a club like Man United, especially when they're signing players like Sancho, who I don't think's actually going to work out. I'll make a bit of a bold prediction. I don't think he's going to be terrible, but I don't think he's going to be worth anywhere near the price they've paid for him. Put it that way.
He won't match his Dortmund form.
No, I completely agree. But
the Premier League's not as open. He'll struggle with the physicality, like Ferner has struggled to adopt to.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So I think there's going to be pressure on him now when United have spent that much money to bring home a trophy this year, and I don't think he's probably capable of doing it, to be honest.
Yeah, but these are the things I all look forward to. But that does bring me into the episode of the Trip Ahead with Wolverhampton Wanderers. As you can see from James Friedthaler, he's a part of the Sweet and Sour Soccer channel, which is running along James. All links to their Twitter and YouTube will all be in the description. Please do go check them out. Subscribe to them. Scott's a completely down to guy. Or he's been very supportive of me on Twitter, especially around the mental health video I did a few months ago. And it's been a pure pleasure to have you on here. You'll be on here a lot more, hopefully going forward.
Yeah, definitely, mate, definitely. And as you say, it's good. It's good to see you happy and smiling, mate, more than anything. So.
I do massively appreciate that. And I said, if you ever want me on your channel for any previews or anything, or said you'd be more than welcome on here for any podcast that I do, and we'll get you on for a Chelsea preview, which if I can just very briefly check, I don't think we played each other for quite a while. No, we don't play until December, so we'll have to get you on sometime before December again.
So we'll come around Christmas. Yeah, then, there we go.
I said, thank you so much for coming on again. Please check their links in the description below. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. The next one coming up is the team that every single Premier League club hate, and it's Burnley, the team that we all absolutely hate under Sean Dyche Brexit ball. So it'll be very interesting to speak to a Burnley fan, Turf Moore. But James Scott, get you guys mixed up. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for watching, and I will see you again in the next video.
Why do you let us hurt one another just for the dollar? Did you lose your heart in the darkness deep in your pocket? No, I don't care of the price I pay. I don't wanna spend my life that way. Tell me, is the pain that you're causing worth what you profit?
Yeah, I know that money don't buy happiness, but buys you more material shit. And reworking how I think and what it means to be rich. I used to think it meant to flex, so Rolex on my wrist. Feels bad to take more than you give. Lately hate how we live. I never wanna become the things that I hate. With a man in the mirror with laugh and spit in my face and tell me that the money is maybe another fake. I've been drowning in my mind and my money's been adding weight. Oh Lord, please save me. I should've known that something man-made couldn't make me. I say I'm making music, or is music what creates me? I never have an answer, same question every day. See, when we pass on, all our things are passed on to the next. Everything we didn't do is everything we regret. Every day we fucking work for this worthless check. If you're not happy, you're forever in debt. You're forever in debt.